These are the explosive accusations from a father and son who say Meghan Markle has spit on and kicked her own family. Thomas Markle Sr., 81 years old and recovering from having his leg amputated, has watched his daughter lie repeatedly and harm everyone around her, and his son, Thomas Markle Jr., has now vowed that Meghan will never get near their father again. This is what happens when family loyalty meets calculated betrayal, and this is what the Markle family is finally saying publicly about the daughter and sister who abandoned them. Thomas Markle Jr. didn't mince words when describing how his sister treated their father, because in December 2025, as Thomas Sr. lay in a hospital bed in the Philippines recovering from having his left leg amputated, Thomas Jr. said his father felt like he'd been spit on and kicked by Meghan, and those are strong words that carry serious implications about the nature of Meghan's treatment of her family. Those words, spit on and kicked, aren't just metaphorical expressions of mild disappointment or frustration, and Thomas Jr. wasn't speaking casually about some minor slight or misunderstanding. He was describing the cumulative effect of 7 years of systematic abandonment, the refusal to visit during a medical crisis that could have killed his father. The letter delivered by lawyers with cameras that focused on Meghan's grievances, rather than offering support, and the complete absence of compassion or care for a man who had sacrificed everything for his daughter. Thomas Jr. went further in his descriptions, calling his sister's treatment of their father during a life-threatening situation absolutely disgusting and unforgivable. And he pointed out that when you're 81 years old and you go through something as traumatic as having your leg amputated to save your life, and then you're getting spit on and kicked by your own family member, the cruelty is almost incomprehensible to anyone with basic human decency. The phrase spit on and kicked captures something visceral and physical about how the Markle family views Meghan's actions, because it's not just neglect, it's not just emotional distance. And it's not just a family disagreement that got out of hand. It's active harm, it's deliberate cruelty, and it's taking someone who's already down, who's already suffering, who's already at their most vulnerable, and making them feel even worse, using their vulnerability against them for your own purposes. To understand Thomas Sr.'s accusations against Meghan, we need to go back to 2021, when he gave an interview that now looks prophetic and prescient about what was to come. Thomas Sr.'s was already deeply concerned about the damage Meghan and Harry were doing to everyone around them, and he wasn't holding back in expressing those concerns to the interviewer. In that 2021 interview with journalist Dan Wooten, Thomas Sr. made a series of explosive statements that revealed his true feelings about what his daughter had become. He said they've harmed the entire royal family, they've harmed my family, and they've harmed Doria's family, referring to Meghan's mother and her extended family. He went on to say that Meghan and Harry had gone out of their way to harm people, and that it makes no sense why they would behave this way, why they would deliberately cause damage to so many people who had done nothing to deserve it. Thomas Sr. specifically mentioned Oprah Winfrey in that interview, saying that Meghan and Harry made Oprah Winfrey look like a fool by lying to her during their infamous televised interview. Thomas claimed they lied to Oprah about 13 times during that broadcast, making false claims and allegations that they knew weren't true, using Oprah's platform and credibility to spread misinformation and damage the reputations of people who couldn't immediately respond or defend themselves. When the interviewer asked Thomas Sr. directly whether his daughter had the capacity to lie, whether she was capable of being fundamentally dishonest, Thomas Sr. gave a devastating answer. He said, well, never quite as much as she is now or has been now, and every day there's a new lie, and it's become a joke among all the papers who cover her. That's a father saying his daughter has become a habitual liar, someone who lies so frequently and so casually that it's no longer surprising, someone whose dishonesty has become her defining characteristic. That's not a casual accusation from an estranged family member trying to get attention, and that's Thomas Sr., who raised Meghan from childhood, who supported her through her teenage years and early career, who believed in her dreams when no one else did. Saying that she's fundamentally dishonest and that her lying has become so routine that journalists treat it as a joke. Thomas Sr. also expressed deep concern in that 2021 interview about Harry's upcoming book, which would eventually be published as Spare and become a bestseller while simultaneously damaging Harry's reputation and relationships. Thomas said he hoped that Harry wasn't writing the book, that he was worried Harry was going to harm his family with it, and that people needed to understand the way he felt, which was that Harry and Meghan had harmed so many people already, and this book would only make things worse. Everything Thomas Sr. warned about in 2021 came true with remarkable accuracy. Because Harry's book did harm his family, the lies continued and multiplied, the damage spread to more and more people, and Thomas Sr. himself became one of the primary victims of Meghan's pattern of cutting people off, rewriting history, and destroying relationships without remorse or accountability. In December 2025, Thomas Markle Jr. reached his breaking point after watching his father suffer through the amputation and then receive that cruel letter from Meghan. On his YouTube channel called Thomas Markle and Friends, he posted a video that YouTube later took down for violating community guidelines due to its explicit language, but before it was removed, Thomas Jr. made his position absolutely crystal clear about what he thought of his sister and her actions. He called Meghan's actions a calculated PR stunt, designed specifically to boost her public image. After her brand had failed, her Netflix projects had underperformed, and her reputation had taken a beating for abandoning her father during his medical crisis. He pointed out the obvious fact that their father's phone number hasn't changed in 15 years, so there's absolutely no excuse for Meghan not being able to reach him directly if she genuinely wanted to communicate with him. Thomas Jr. said with absolute conviction, "I don't think there's anybody in Hollywood that's ever going to hire her again, and nobody's going to touch that brand because it's tainted. Whatever it touches dies, it's foul, and it's disgusting." Those are harsh words, but they reflect Thomas Jr.'s genuine belief that Meghan has become so toxic, so damaging to everyone around her, that even Hollywood, which tolerates all kinds of bad behavior, won't work with her anymore. He went on to describe Meghan as looking like a psychopath who appears medically induced in her videos, suggesting she's disconnected from reality and possibly under the influence of something that's affecting her judgment and behavior. Thomas Jr. said Meghan and Harry are in La La Land with no concept of reality, living in a fantasy world where their actions don't have consequences and other people's feelings don't matter. But the most significant statement Thomas Jr. made, the one that really captures the depth of the family division and the level of distrust, was this: "Meghan, you will not get within 20 feet of my dad, and I can promise you that." That's a son saying he will physically prevent his sister from seeing their father, that he will stand between them to protect Thomas Sr. from further harm, and that he doesn't trust Meghan's motives or intentions enough to allow any contact. That's how deep the distrust runs in this family, and that's how serious Thomas Jr. is about protecting his father from what he sees as Meghan's manipulative and harmful behavior. Thomas Jr. doesn't believe Meghan's motives are genuine. He believes she's trying to use their father for PR purposes to rehabilitate her failing image, and he's willing to stand between them physically to prevent that exploitation from happening. Thomas Jr. also went after what he called Meghan's criminal organization, which is his term for the Sussex Squad, the group of Meghan's most devoted online supporters who have been accused by multiple people of harassing and threatening anyone who criticizes the Duchess. Thomas Jr. said that Meghan's criminal organization of the Sussex Squad goes after anybody who says anything bad about Meghan, and he sarcastically added, "Your quarterly bonuses are in your account," suggesting that Meghan pays people to attack her critics online. He continued by saying, "It's no mystery that Meghan pays people to go after anybody who says anything bad about her, and one day all the Sussex Squad will be wiped off the face of the planet. Because people of this evil caliber do not have a place on this world." These are serious accusations about organized harassment campaigns, about paid trolls attacking critics, and about Meghan orchestrating online abuse against people who speak out about her behavior. Lady Colin Campbell has made similar claims about being targeted by Meghan's supporters, stating that they've sent death threats and engaged in what amounts to stalking and harassment. The Sussex Squad's behavior has been documented extensively by journalists and commentators, with some members creating elaborate attack campaigns against anyone who criticizes Meghan, including members of the royal family, journalists, and even Meghan's own relatives. One of the most damning accusations about Meghan's treatment of her father comes from Lady Colin Campbell, who organized a crowdfunder to help pay Thomas Sr.'s medical bills because Meghan wouldn't help. According to Lady C, Thomas Sr. bankrupted himself, helping Meghan, and here's how that happened. Even after Meghan was earning very good money from her acting career on the TV show Suits, she allowed her father to continue paying for her education and other expenses without contributing anything herself. Thomas Sr., who had spent his entire career working 75+ hours a week as a lighting director to support his family, put everything he had into supporting his daughter's dreams and ambitions. He paid for her private education. He supported her through her struggling years as an actress. He put gas in her car when she drove from audition to audition, and he believed in her when no one else did. And Meghan didn't help. She didn't contribute. She didn't tell her father to stop paying, and she let him drain his savings and his retirement to support her, even though she no longer needed the help. The result of this financial exploitation was devastating, because when Thomas Sr. had his medical emergencies, the stroke in 2022 and the amputation in 2025, he didn't have the money to pay for proper care. He was in the Philippines partly because he couldn't afford American healthcare. He needed crowdfunding from strangers because his famous, wealthy daughter wouldn't help, and he faced financial stress that contributed to his declining health and limited his treatment options. Thomas Jr. has pointed out this hypocrisy repeatedly because Meghan presents herself as a humanitarian, as someone who cares about others, as someone fighting for social justice and helping the disadvantaged. But she let her own father bankrupt himself for her benefit and then abandoned him when he needed her most, leaving him to rely on the charity of strangers while she lived in a mansion in California with millions of dollars from her Netflix and Spotify deals. Thomas Sr. His accusation that every day there's a new lie from Meghan has been borne out repeatedly over the years since that 2021 interview, and the lies aren't just about small things or minor details. They're about fundamental aspects of Meghan's life and relationships, about major claims that shape public perception and influence how people view her and the royal family. Meghan claimed she and Harry were married 3 days before their public wedding, creating a romantic narrative about a private ceremony, and the Archbishop of Canterbury later had to publicly correct that false claim, explaining that what happened was a private exchange of vows, not a legal marriage. Meghan claimed she didn't know much about the royal family before meeting Harry, presenting herself as naive and unprepared for royal life. And her friends contradicted that, revealing she'd been fascinated with Princess Diana and the royals for years. Meghan claimed she was suicidal while living at Kensington Palace and asked for help but was denied, making serious allegations about the royal family's treatment of her mental health, and palace staff have disputed that account, saying proper channels and support were available, but Meghan didn't use them. The pattern Thomas Sr. identified in 2021 has continued without interruption because Meghan makes claims that sound dramatic and sympathetic, that generate public support and sympathy, that serve her narrative of being a victim, but when examined closely, these claims often fall apart or get contradicted by people who were actually there. Thomas Sr. knows this pattern better than anyone because he's lived it. He raised Meghan. He knows who she really was before fame changed her. And he's watched her construct a public narrative that bears little resemblance to the truth of who she is and how she treats people. Thomas Sr. His accusation that Meghan and Harry have harmed the entire royal family, and harmed my family, and harmed Doria's family, is worth examining in detail because it reveals the scope of the damage Meghan has caused. The harm to the royal family is well documented and undeniable because Meghan and Harry's Oprah interview made allegations of racism that were never substantiated with evidence. Harry's book, Spare, revealed private conversations and attacked family members who couldn't defend themselves. And the constant media briefings and public statements have created ongoing tension and division within the institution. The harm to Thomas Sr.'s family is obvious and painful to watch because Thomas Sr. has been abandoned during medical emergencies. Samantha has been cut off and sued for defamation. Thomas Jr. has been vilified in the media, and the family has been torn apart, with Meghan on one side and everyone else on the other, unable to bridge the gap or find any path to reconciliation. But the mention of Doria's family is interesting and revealing because Meghan's mother, Doria Ragland, has largely stayed out of the spotlight and avoided public controversy, but there have been reports of tension within her family as well. The suggestion from Thomas Sr. is that Meghan's pattern of cutting people off and causing division extends even to her mother's side of the family, that it's not just the Markles who have experienced her destructive behavior, and that the damage she causes spreads to everyone who comes into contact with her. Thomas Jr.'s vow that Meghan will not get within 20 feet of their father is both protective and tragic, because it's protective in the sense that Thomas Jr. genuinely believes Meghan would use any visit to their father for PR purposes, that she would bring cameras, document the visit, and use it to rehabilitate her image without actually caring about Thomas Sr.'s well-being. But it's also tragic because it means Thomas Sr., who has repeatedly said he wants to see his daughter and meet his grandchildren before he dies, is being kept from that possibility by his own son. The question is whether Thomas Jr. is right to be so protective, and based on how the letter was delivered, with lawyers, legal documents, and video recording, it's hard to argue that he's wrong. Meghan's approach to her father has been so calculated, so documented, so focused on managing perception rather than genuine connection, that Thomas Jr.'s fears seem entirely justified and reasonable. If Meghan were to show up in the Philippines, would it be because she genuinely wanted to see her father and offer support, or would it be because her PR team told her it was necessary for her image? Would she come alone as a daughter visiting her sick father, or would she bring staff and cameras to document the visit? Would it be a private moment between father and daughter, or would it be another calculated gesture designed for public consumption? Thomas Jr. has decided he's not willing to risk his father being used that way. He's not willing to let Meghan hurt Thomas Sr. again, and he's not willing to allow interactions that could be twisted or misrepresented later. So he's drawn a line, a literal physical boundary, 20 feet, and that's as close as Meghan gets to their father, because Thomas Jr. has seen enough of Meghan's behavior to know that she can't be trusted with their father's well-being or his dignity. After YouTube took down his first video for explicit language, Thomas Jr. posted a follow-up where he apologized for his vulgar language, but the apology was limited to his word choice, not his message or his accusations. He said YouTube took it down and he doesn't blame them because it's just too harsh to listen to that kind of language, and they gave him a nice slap on the wrist and said, "Don't do that again." But then he continued with his core message, saying his dad's got a long, hard road of recovery ahead and just go away. Meghan, go away because nobody likes you. I personally hate you. Samantha hates you. And the majority of the people in the world hate you, Meghan, and that's the hard, cold reality, and you did it to yourself. And don't use my dad for trying to save your public image, because we all see through it. We all know what you're doing, and we're not going to let you exploit him anymore. That's not really an apology for his position or his accusations, and that's a restatement of his core beliefs in slightly more acceptable language. Thomas Jr. is sorry he cursed and used explicit language, but he's not sorry for what he said about Meghan. He's not sorry for calling her out, and he stands by every accusation he's made about her character and her treatment of their father. At the heart of all these explosive accusations is one fundamental claim that ties everything together. Meghan Markle is willing to harm anyone, including her own family, to protect and promote her image and interests. And she has no genuine capacity for love, loyalty, or compassion when those things conflict with her own needs. Thomas Sr. said it clearly in 2021 when he stated they've gone out of their way to harm people, and Thomas Jr. said it even more bluntly in 2025 when he said, "Whatever it touches, dies." The accusation is that Meghan is not just neglectful or emotionally distant or bad at maintaining relationships, and the accusation is that she's actively destructive, deliberately harmful, and willing to damage anyone who gets in her way or doesn't serve her purposes. This goes beyond normal family drama or typical celebrity narcissism or even the usual dysfunction you see in famous families, because the Markle family is accusing Meghan of being someone who deliberately causes harm, who lies habitually without remorse, who manipulates situations for her benefit regardless of who gets hurt, and who has no genuine concern for the people she's supposed to love, including her own father who sacrificed everything for her. Thomas Sr., who raised Meghan and knew her before fame transformed her, is saying his daughter has become someone he doesn't recognize, someone who lies every day, someone who harms everyone around her, someone who made Oprah Winfrey look like a fool with her false claims, and someone who has destroyed multiple families without showing any remorse or taking any responsibility. Thomas Jr., who has spent months caring for their father full-time as his primary caregiver, is saying his sister is so dangerous, so untrustworthy, so focused on PR over genuine human connection, that he will physically prevent her from getting near their father because he knows she'll use any interaction for her own purposes rather than genuinely caring about Thomas Sr.'s well-being. These aren't accusations from tabloid journalists looking for clicks. These aren't claims from royal commentators trying to sell books, and these aren't allegations from strangers who don't know Meghan. These are accusations from Meghan's own family members, from people who love Thomas Sr. and have watched Meghan's treatment of him for 7 years, from people who have seen her behavior up close and concluded she's beyond redemption. The explosive accusations from Thomas Markle Sr. and Thomas Markle Jr. paint a picture of Meghan Markle that contradicts everything she presents to the public, because according to her own father and brother, she's not the humanitarian she claims to be, she's not the victim she portrays herself as, and she's not the compassionate duchess who cares about social justice and helping others. According to her own family, she's someone who lies habitually, who harms everyone around her, who bankrupted her father and then abandoned him, who uses people for PR purposes, and who has no genuine capacity for love or loyalty when those things conflict with her own interests. Thomas Sr. warned in 2021 that Meghan and Harry were harming everyone around them, and he was right. His warnings came true, and the damage continues to spread. Thomas Jr. vowed in 2025 that Meghan would never get near their father again, and he meant it. He's willing to physically stand between them to protect Thomas Sr. from further harm. The question now is whether anyone will believe the people who know Meghan best, whether the public will listen to her own family's warnings, or whether her carefully constructed public image will continue to shield her from accountability for how she treats the people who loved her most and sacrificed the most for her success. The explosive nature of these accusations cannot be overstated, because when a father says his daughter lies every day, when a brother says his sister is so toxic that whatever she touches dies, when family members use words like spit on and kicked to describe her treatment of her elderly father, these aren't casual complaints or minor grievances. These are serious allegations about fundamental character flaws, about someone who has lost touch with basic human decency, about a person who prioritizes image and wealth over family and compassion. What makes these accusations particularly credible and difficult to dismiss is that they come from multiple family members who have nothing to gain and everything to lose by speaking out. Thomas Sr. still loves his daughter and wants reconciliation, so his criticisms come despite his love, not because of hatred or a desire for revenge. Thomas Jr. has devoted months of his life to caring for his father full-time, sacrificing his own life and opportunities to be there when Meghan won't. So his protectiveness comes from genuine concern and first-hand observation of the damage Meghan's abandonment has caused. Samantha Markle has been equally vocal in her criticisms, and she's even filed a defamation lawsuit against Meghan over statements made in interviews and the Netflix docuseries. Samantha is disabled and lives in Florida, unable to travel easily, but she's been consistent in defending her father and calling out Meghan's behavior. The fact that multiple family members independently and consistently describe the same patterns of behavior, the same character flaws, the same willingness to harm others for personal gain, suggests these aren't fabricated accusations, but rather observations based on years of experience with Meghan. The timing of Thomas Sr.'s 2021 interview is particularly significant because it came before many of the events that would later prove his warnings correct. He said Meghan and Harry were harming everyone around them, and since then, we've seen the damage continue and expand. He said every day there's a new lie, and since then, we've seen multiple claims from Meghan contradicted or walked back. He said they made Oprah look foolish with false claims, and subsequent reporting has questioned or contradicted several of the allegations made during that interview. Thomas Sr. wasn't reacting to recent events when he made those statements in 2021, and he was describing patterns he'd observed over years, patterns that have only become more obvious and more damaging as time has passed. His prediction that Harry's book would harm his family came true when Spare was published and revealed private conversations and attacked family members who couldn't defend themselves. His concern about the lies and the harm being caused has been validated repeatedly by Meghan and Harry's subsequent behavior and the contradictions in their various public statements. The phrase spit on and kicked that Thomas Jr. used to describe Meghan's treatment of their father is particularly powerful because it conveys both the active nature of the harm and the vulnerability of the victim. You don't spit on and kick someone who's standing strong and able to defend themselves, and you spit on and kick someone who's already down, someone who's vulnerable, someone who can't fight back. That's what makes the phrase so damning, because it captures the cruelty of attacking someone during their weakest moment, of using their vulnerability against them, of causing harm to someone who's already suffering. Thomas Sr. was already down when Meghan cut him off in 2018. Already vulnerable because of his age and his financial situation, already dependent on her goodwill because he'd bankrupted himself supporting her. The stroke in 2022 knocked him down further, taking away his ability to speak clearly and defend himself articulately. The amputation in 2025 knocked him down even more, leaving him with one leg, in pain, scared about his future. And at each of these moments, when Thomas was at his most vulnerable, when he was already down and suffering, Meghan either did nothing or made things worse by sending that letter focused on her grievances. That's what spit on and kicked means in this context, and it means taking someone who's already suffering and making them suffer more, taking someone who's already vulnerable and exploiting that vulnerability. Taking someone who's already down and kicking them while they're there, it's the opposite of compassion, the opposite of family loyalty, the opposite of basic human decency. And according to Thomas Jr., it's exactly what Meghan has done to their father repeatedly over 7 years. The explosive accusations from the Markle family also raise uncomfortable questions about Meghan's public persona and whether anything she presents to the world is genuine or authentic. If her own father and siblings describe her as someone who lies habitually, who harms everyone around her, who uses people for her own purposes, then what does that say about her public statements about compassion, about social justice, about caring for others? Are those statements genuine expressions of her values, or are they calculated performances designed to build a brand and generate income? Thomas Sr. and Thomas Jr. aren't the only ones who have raised these questions, because former staff members, former friends, and people who have worked with Meghan have also described patterns of behavior that contradict her public image. Multiple staff members left their positions working for Meghan and Harry, with some describing a difficult work environment. Former friends have been cut off without explanation when they no longer served Meghan's purposes. The pattern that emerges from all these accounts is consistent with what the Markle family describes: someone who uses people when they're useful and discards them when they're not. The explosive nature of Thomas Sr. His accusations in that 2021 interview, particularly his claim that Meghan lies every day and it's become a joke among journalists, suggests a level of dishonesty that goes beyond normal human imperfection or occasional exaggeration. He's describing someone for whom lying is habitual and casual, someone who doesn't seem to feel constrained by truth or concerned about being caught in lies. Someone who will say whatever serves her purposes in the moment, regardless of whether it's accurate or can be verified. For a father to say that about his daughter, for Thomas Sr., to make that accusation publicly, despite still loving Meghan and wanting reconciliation, suggests he's reached a point where he feels the truth needs to be told regardless of the consequences. He's not trying to destroy Meghan's reputation for revenge or profit, and he's trying to warn people about who she really is, trying to correct the false narrative she's constructed. Trying to speak truth even though it costs him the relationship he desperately wants with his daughter and grandchildren. For Thomas Sr., lying in that hospital bed in the Philippines recovering from having his leg amputated, the answer is already clear. His daughter has spit on him and kicked him metaphorically and emotionally. And his son is the only one standing between him and more harm, the only one protecting him from a daughter who has shown she's willing to use even his darkest moments for her own benefit. The explosive accusations from Thomas Markle Sr. and Thomas Markle Jr. aren't just family drama or tabloid fodder, and they're serious allegations about character, about cruelty, about someone who has lost touch with basic human decency in her pursuit of fame and wealth and image management. Whether the world believes them or continues to accept Meghan's carefully constructed public persona will determine whether she faces any accountability for how she's treated the people who loved her most and sacrificed the most for her success.